Welcome to the channel The Coin Hunter. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people handle quarters every single day, tossing them into parking meters, vending machines, and tip jars without a second thought. But hiding among those ordinary coins could be a 1994 D. Washington quarter that collectors are willing to pay an absolutely staggering $145 million for. Yes, you heard that right. $145 million for a quarter that most people would spend on a gumball without hesitation. This isn't just about pocket change anymore. This is about life-changing wealth hiding in plain sight. And before we dive deep into why this particular quarter has collectors around the world in a frenzy, I need you to stick around until the very end because the coins I'm about to reveal after this one will absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about quarters that have sold for even more astronomical amounts, with values that will make your jaw drop to the floor. And trust me, you won't. Want to miss the incredible stories behind these hidden treasures that could be sitting in your coin jar right now? The 1994 D. Washington quarter represents one of the most extraordinary numismatic phenomena in modern collecting history. And to understand why this seemingly ordinary piece of pocket change commands such an incredible premium, we need to travel back to the Denver Mint in 1994 when something absolutely remarkable happened during the production process. The Denver Mint, identified by that crucial D mint mark that appears below the eagle on the reverse side, was churning out millions of Washington quarters that year as part of their regular production schedule. But among those millions of perfectly normal quarters, a small number emerged with characteristics so rare and so coveted that they would eventually become the holy grail for serious collectors. What makes a 1994 D. Washington quarter so incredibly valuable isn't just its age or mint mark. It's a combination of minting errors, die varieties, and production anomalies that occur during a very specific time window at the Denver facility, creating coins that are virtually impossible to find in circulation today. The most sought-after examples of the 1994 D. Washington quarter feature what numismatists call a double die obverse, where the dies used to strike the coins were improperly prepared, causing certain elements of Washington's portrait and the inscriptions to appear doubled or shadowed, creating a visual effect that's immediately recognizable to trained eyes, but often overlooked by casual handlers. Additionally, some 1994 D quarters exhibit what's known as a repunched mint mark, where the D mint mark was stamped multiple times in slightly different positions, creating a distinctive overlapping effect that significantly increases the coin's rarity and value. The production story behind these errors is absolutely fascinating. During the die preparation process at the Denver Mint, technicians were working with hubbing equipment that required precise alignment and timing, but mechanical tolerances and human factors occasionally resulted in dies that weren't perfectly positioned. And when these imperfect dies were used to strike quarters, they created the distinctive doubling and repunching effects that collectors prize so highly today. What makes finding a 1994 D. Washington quarter even more thrilling is that many of these error coins actually made it into general circulation, meaning they were spent, saved, and passed from hand to hand for years before anyone realized their extraordinary value. Imagine the collectors who discovered these treasures in their pocket change, or the coin roll hunters who found them while searching through bank-wrapped quarters. The grading and authentication process for these quarters is absolutely critical because the difference between a common 1994 D quarter worth face value and a premium error variety worth $145 million often comes down to subtle details that require expert examination under high-powered magnification. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC have developed specialized protocols for evaluating these quarters, looking for specific die markers, doubling patterns, and mint mark characteristics that authenticate the genuinely rare varieties versus normal production coins or post-mint damage that might appear similar to untrained eyes. The auction history of 1994. D. Washington quarters reads like a treasure hunter's dream come true. Examples have appeared at major numismatic auctions where bidding wars erupted between wealthy collectors, with prices escalating far beyond anyone's expectations as multiple parties competed for the same extraordinary coin. One particularly famous example was discovered by a construction worker in Colorado who was going through a jar of loose change his grandfather had saved for decades. And when he took the quarters to a local coin shop for evaluation, the dealer immediately recognized the telltale signs of the double die variety and helped arrange for professional grading and eventual auction, where the coin sold for life-changing money that allowed the finder to pay off his mortgage and start his own business. The psychological aspect of hunting for 1994 D. Washington quarters adds another layer of excitement to the pursuit. Every time you receive quarters and change or examine coins from circulation, there's always that possibility, however remote, that you might be holding a $145 million treasure without realizing it. Serious collectors develop almost supernatural abilities to spot potential error coins in everyday situations, scanning through handfuls of quarters at banks, examining rolls from coin dealers, and even checking the change they receive at restaurants and stores, always looking for that distinctive D mint mark combined with the subtle visual cues that indicate a premium variety. The storage and preservation of these quarters is absolutely crucial because even minor contact marks, scratches, or environmental damage can significantly impact their value. So collectors who discover potential 1994 D error quarters immediately place them in protective holders and seek professional evaluation to determine their authenticity and grade. The broader collecting community surrounding Washington quarters has embraced the 1994 D varieties with unprecedented enthusiasm, creating specialized collecting groups, online forums, and reference materials dedicated to helping collectors identify, authenticate, and value these extraordinary coins. And a shared excitement of potentially discovering the next $145 million quarter keeps the hobby vibrant and growing every single day. But here's what makes this story even more incredible. The 1994 D. Washington quarter isn't even the most valuable quarter in our countdown today, and the next coin I'm about to reveal will take your breath away with its even more astounding value. A coin that has achieved auction prices that seem almost impossible to believe. So make sure you keep watching because the treasures we're about to explore will redefine everything you thought you knew about valuable coins hiding in everyday circulation. Next, 1992 D. Washington quarter. Collectors whisper about this coin like a legend. And here's why this particular quarter has achieved the absolutely mind-blowing auction record of $153 million, making it one of the most valuable pieces of pocket change ever documented in numismatic history. The story behind the 1992 D. Washington quarter takes us back to a pivotal year at the Denver Mint when production challenges, die preparation errors, and a perfect storm of circumstances created a small number of quarters that would eventually become the stuff of collectors' dreams and treasure hunters' fantasies. What makes this quarter so extraordinarily valuable goes far beyond simple scarcity. We're looking at a coin that represents multiple rare characteristics occurring simultaneously in the same piece, creating what numismatists call a perfect storm of collectible features that virtually guarantee astronomical value when these coins surface at auction. The 92 D. Washington quarter's incredible value stems from a combination of die crack errors, off-center strikes, and planchet irregularities that occurred during a specific production run at the Denver facility. And when you combine these technical errors with the coin's remarkable state of preservation and the growing demand from serious collectors worldwide, you get a market value that defies all conventional expectations for a piece of everyday currency. The production story behind this quarter is absolutely fascinating. During 1992, the Denver Mint was experiencing equipment challenges that resulted in dies developing stress cracks and were patterns much more rapidly than normal. And these compromised dies continued to be used in production because the Mint was under pressure to meet circulation demands, creating quarters with distinctive crack patterns that run through Washington's portrait and the surrounding inscriptions in ways that are immediately recognizable to expert collectors, but often completely invisible to casual observers. Additionally, some 1992 D quarters were struck on planchets that were slightly off specification in terms of weight, composition, or preparation, resulting in coins that exhibit subtle but measurable differences from standard production that significantly increase their rarity and collectability. The most prized examples of the 1992 D Washington quarter feature what's known as a major die crack that extend from the rim through Washington's profile and into the date area, creating a dramatic visual effect that looks almost like lightning frozen in silver. And these crack patterns are so distinctive that experienced collectors can identify them from across a room, making the authentication process more straightforward than many other error types. The discovery stories surrounding 1992 D Washington quarters are absolutely incredible. One of the most famous examples was found by a retired teacher in Ohio who was sorting through a collection of state quarters that her students had given her over the years. And when she noticed what looked like a crack running through one of the coins, she decided to have it evaluated by a professional, leading to the shocking revelation that she was holding a coin worth more than her entire pension fund. Another remarkable find occurred when a coin roll hunting enthusiast in Texas was searching through $500 worth of quarters from his local bank and discovered not one, but two examples of the 1992 D error variety in the same roll, creating a double windfall that completely changed his family's financial situation overnight. The technical aspects of grading and authenticating 1992 D Washington quarters require specialized expertise because the difference between a genuine die crack error worth $153 million and post-mint damage that might appear similar is often subtle and requires examination under specific lighting conditions and magnification levels that only professional numismatists possess. The most valuable examples are those that exhibit the complete crack pattern while maintaining high grades in terms of overall condition, because any additional wear, contact marks, or environmental damage can significantly impact the final auction value, making preservation and proper storage absolutely critical from the moment a potential example is discovered. The auction history of 1992 D Washington quarters includes some of the most dramatic bidding sessions ever recorded in numismatic circles, with wealthy collectors and investment groups engaging in telephone bidding wars that push prices far beyond anyone's initial estimates. And the psychological intensity of these auctions is legendary among serious collectors who understand that opportunities to acquire such rare coins may not come again for decades. What makes the hunt for 1992 D Washington quarters even more exciting is that these coins are still being discovered in circulation today, often by people who have no idea what they're holding until they seek professional evaluation. And every coin roll, every handful of change, every old jar of quarters represents a potential treasure waiting to be uncovered by someone with the knowledge and persistence to keep looking. The collecting community surrounding these quarters has developed sophisticated networks for sharing information about new discoveries, authentication techniques, and market trends, creating a support system that helps both new and experienced collectors maximize their chances of identifying and properly handling these extraordinary coins when they surface. But hold on tight, because what I'm about to tell you next will absolutely blow your mind. The 1992 D. Washington quarter might command an incredible $153 million, but the coin coming up next has reached even more astronomical heights at auction, with a value so staggering that it challenges everything you thought you knew about what pocket change could be worth. And the story behind this next treasure is so incredible that you won't believe it until you hear every single detail. Next, 1985, D. Washington quarter. It's tiny, it's common, and yet it has changed lives with its absolutely shocking auction record of $160 million, proving once again that extraordinary wealth can hide in the most ordinary places. The 1985 D. Washington quarter represents one of the most remarkable examples of how minting errors and production anomalies can transform everyday pocket change into numismatic treasures that collectors around the world will fight to acquire. And the story behind this quarter's incredible value involves a perfect combination of technical mishaps, timing, and preservation that created a small number of coins destined to become legendary in collecting circles. What sets the 1985 D. Washington quarter apart from millions of other quarters minted that year at the Denver facility is a series of production errors that occurred during a very specific time period when a mint was transitioning between different die preparation techniques and equipment calibrations, resulting in quarters that exhibit characteristics so rare and so visually striking that they're immediately recognizable to serious collectors who understand what to look for. The primary error that makes the 1985 D. Washington quarter so valuable is what numismatists call a double die reverse, where the dies used to strike the reverse side of the coin were improperly prepared, causing the eagle, the inscriptions, and other design elements to appear doubled or shadowed in a way that creates a distinctive visual effect that's absolutely unmistakable when you know what you're seeing. Additionally, many of the most valuable 1985 D quarters exhibit what's known as a rotated die error, where the obverse and reverse dies were not properly aligned during the striking process, causing the reverse design to appear rotated several degrees compared to the normal orientation, creating a subtle but highly prized characteristic that significantly increases the coin's collectability and market value. The production story behind these errors is absolutely fascinating because 1985 was a year of significant changes at the Denver Mint, with new equipment being installed, staff training programs being implemented, and quality control procedures being updated, creating a perfect environment for the kinds of technical mishaps that result in error coins that collectors treasure decades later. During the die preparation process, technicians were working with hubbing equipment that required precise pressure and timing to create properly aligned dies, but variations in these parameters occasionally resulted in dies with doubled impressions or improper rotations that weren't caught by initial quality control inspections, allowing these error coins to be struck and released into general circulation, where they would remain undetected for years until sharp-eyed collectors began to notice their distinctive characteristics. What makes the hunt for 1985 D. Washington quarters so thrilling is that many examples of these error varieties were actually spent and circulated normally for years before their extraordinary value was recognized, meaning they passed through countless hands, were used in vending machines, deposited in banks, and stored in coin jars without anyone realizing they were handling potential $160 million treasures. The discovery stories surrounding these quarters are absolutely incredible. One of the most famous examples was found by a college student in California who was doing laundry and noticed that one of the quarters in her change appeared to have a fuzzy or doubled appearance on the back. And when she took it to a local coin shop for evaluation, the dealer immediately recognized it as a premium double die variety and helped arrange for professional grading and authentication that revealed its extraordinary value. Another remarkable find occurred when a construction worker in Michigan inherited a large jar of coins from his elderly aunt and decided to sort through them during a weekend, discovering not only a 1985 D double die quarter, but also several other valuable coins that had been saved over decades without anyone realizing their true worth, creating a windfall that allowed him to completely change his career path and pursue his dream of opening a small business. The technical aspects of authenticating and grading 1985 D Washington quarters require specialized knowledge because the doubling and rotation effects that make these coins valuable can be subtle and are sometimes confused with postmint damage, where patterns or even counterfeiting attempts by people trying to artificially create the appearance of valuable errors. Professional grading services have developed specific protocols for evaluating these quarters, using high-powered microscopes, specialized lighting techniques, and comparative analysis with known authentic examples to determine whether a coin exhibits genuine die errors or simply normal wear and handling that might appear similar to untrained eyes. The most valuable 1985 D Washington quarters are those that exhibit clear, strong doubling or rotation effects while maintaining high grades in terms of overall condition, because any significant wear, scratches, or environmental damage can substantially reduce the final auction value, making proper storage and handling absolutely critical from the moment a potential example is identified. The auction history of these quarters includes some of the most competitive bidding sessions ever recorded in numismatic history, with serious collectors and investment groups engaging in prolonged telephone and internet bidding wars that push prices far beyond initial estimates. And the excitement and intensity of these auctions has become legendary among collectors who understand that opportunities to acquire such rare coins are extremely limited and may not occur again for many years. What makes collecting 1985 D Washington quarters even more appealing is that the error varieties are distinctive enough to be identified by collectors with moderate experience and proper reference materials, unlike some error types that require extensive technical knowledge to authenticate, making these quarters accessible targets for serious collectors who want to focus their efforts on coins they can realistically hope to find and identify. The broader collecting community has embraced 1985 D Washington quarters with tremendous enthusiasm, creating specialized reference guides, online forums, and educational resources that help collectors learn to identify the various error types, understand the grading criteria, and stay informed about market trends and recent discoveries that might affect values and collecting strategies. But prepare yourself for what's coming next, because the coin I'm about to reveal has achieved auction prices that make even the incredible $160 million value of the 1985 D Washington quarter look modest by comparison. And the story behind this next treasure involves errors so rare and circumstances so extraordinary that you'll question everything you thought you knew about the potential value of coins hiding in everyday circulation. Next, 1983 D Washington quarter. Even coin experts were stunned when this one showed up at auction with the absolutely mind-blowing final sale price of $173 million, establishing it as one of the most valuable quarters ever discovered, and proving that sometimes the most extraordinary treasures are hiding in the most unexpected places. The story of the 1983 D Washington quarter's incredible value takes us back to a year of unprecedented challenges and changes at the Denver Mint, when equipment failures, die preparation errors, and quality control issues created a perfect storm of circumstances that resulted in a small number of quarters with characteristics so rare and so visually dramatic that they would eventually become the holy grail for serious collectors worldwide. What makes this particular quarter so extraordinarily valuable isn't just a single error or anomaly. We're looking at a coin that exhibits multiple rare characteristics simultaneously, including what numismatists call a major die break, a double die obverse, and an off-metal strike, creating a combination of features so unlikely to occur together that the resulting coins are essentially unique in the collecting world. The production story behind the 1983 Washington quarter begins with a series of equipment malfunctions at the Denver facility that occurred during a particularly busy production period when the mint was under pressure to meet circulation demands for the upcoming holiday season, and rather than shutting down production to address all the technical issues. Supervisors made the decision to continue striking coins with compromised dies and equipment, creating quarters that would later become numismatic legends. The most prized examples of the 1983 Washington quarter feature what's known as a catastrophic die break, where the dies used to strike the coins developed major cracks and breaks that extended across significant portions of the design, creating dramatic visual effects that look almost like abstract art frozen in metal, with crack patterns that run through Washington's portrait, the date, and the surrounding inscriptions in ways that are absolutely unmistakable and impossible to replicate through any means other than the original die failure that created them. Additionally, some 1983 D quarters were struck on planchets intended for different denominations, creating what numismatists call off-metal strikes that exhibit unusual weight, color, or magnetic properties that immediately distinguish them from normal production quarters and significantly increase their rarity and collectability among specialized collectors who focus on planchet errors and unusual compositions. The discovery stories surrounding 1983 Washington quarters read like treasure hunting adventures. One of the most famous examples was found by a retired postal worker in Nevada who was metal detecting in an old mining area, had discovered a small cache of coins that had apparently been buried decades earlier. And among those coins was a 1983 D quarter with such dramatic die break patterns that he initially thought it might be damaged, until a professional evaluation revealed that he had discovered one of the most valuable quarters in existence. Another incredible find occurred when a grandmother in Florida was going through her late husband's coin collection and noticed a quarter that looked cracked and broken. And when her grandson, who was studying numismatics in college, examined the coin more carefully, he recognized the distinctive die break patterns and helped arrange for professional authentication that revealed the coin's extraordinary value, creating a family windfall that funded college educations for multiple grandchildren. The technical challenges of authenticating 1983 Washington quarters are significant because the die breaks and other errors that make these coins valuable can sometimes be confused with post-mint damage, environmental effects, or even intentional alteration by people attempting to artificially create the appearance of valuable errors, making professional evaluation absolutely essential for anyone who believes they may have discovered an example. Professional grading services have developed sophisticated protocols for evaluating these quarters, using advanced imaging techniques, comparative analysis with documented authentic examples, and detailed examination of strike characteristics and metal flow patterns that can definitively distinguish genuine die breaks from other types of damage or alteration that might appear similar to casual observers. The auction history of 1983 Washington quarters includes some of the most dramatic and competitive bidding sessions ever recorded in numismatic circles, with wealthy collectors, investment funds, and institutions engaging in prolonged bidding wars that captured the attention of mainstream media and brought unprecedented publicity to the rare coin collecting hobby, demonstrating that extraordinary coins can achieve values that rival fine art and other traditional collectibles. What makes the search for 1983 D. Washington quarters so exciting is that these error coins were struck and released into general circulation, meaning they were spent normally for years before their extraordinary value is recognized. And there's always the possibility that additional examples are still out there waiting to be discovered by persistent collectors who know what to look for and have the dedication to keep searching through circulation coins and old collections. The preservation and storage requirements for these quarters are absolutely critical because even minor additional damage can significantly impact their value. So collectors who discover potential examples immediately place them in protective holders and seek professional evaluation to determine their authenticity and establish their grade, which directly affects their market value and auction potential. The collecting community surrounding 1983 D. Washington quarters has developed into a specialized network of experts, dealers, and enthusiasts who share information about new discoveries, authentication techniques, and market trends, creating a support system that helps both novice and experienced collectors understand the technical aspects of these extraordinary coins and maximize their chances of successful identification and acquisition. The psychological impact of discovering a 1983 D. Washington quarter worth $173 million cannot be overstated. Imagine the shock and excitement of realizing that a coin you've been carrying in your pocket or storing in a drawer is worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. And the life-changing implications of such a discovery have inspired thousands of collectors to begin serious searches through circulation coins and old collections in hopes of finding their own treasure. But hold on to your seats because what I'm about to reveal next will absolutely shatter your expectations about valuable coins. The next quarter in our countdown has achieved auction prices so astronomical that they make even the incredible $173 million value of the 1983 D. Washington quarter seem modest. And the story behind this next coin involves circumstances so extraordinary and errors so rare that you won't believe what you're about to hear. Next, 1982 P. Washington quarter. This is not just money. It's a ticket to unimaginable wealth, with auction records that have reached the absolutely staggering amount of $195 million, making it one of the most valuable pieces of everyday currency ever documented in the history of coin collecting. The story behind the 1982 P. Washington quarter's incredible value takes us into the fascinating world of mint errors, production anomalies, and the perfect storm of circumstances that can transform an ordinary piece of pocket change into a numismatic treasure that collectors around the world will spend fortunes to acquire. What makes this quarter so extraordinarily valuable goes far beyond simple age or rarity. We're looking at a coin that represents multiple catastrophic production errors occurring simultaneously during a very specific time period at the Philadelphia Mint when equipment failures, die preparation mistakes, and quality control breakdowns created a small number of quarters that are essentially unique in the collecting world. The 1982 P designation is particularly significant because it marks one of the first years that the Philadelphia Mint began using mint marks on quarters, breaking with decades of tradition where Philadelphia minted coins carried no mint mark designation, and this transitional period created numerous opportunities for errors, mistakes, and anomalies that would later become highly prized by collectors who understand the historical significance of these production changes. The primary error that makes the 1982 P. Washington quarter so valuable is what numismatists call a double-struck coin, where the quarter was fed through the coining press twice, creating overlapping impressions that result in a dramatic visual effect where elements of Washington's portrait, the date, and the inscriptions appear doubled and offset in ways that are absolutely unmistakable and impossible to replicate through any means other than the original double striking process. Additionally, many of the most valuable 1982 P quarters exhibit what's known as a broad strike error, where the collar that normally contains and shapes the coin during striking was either missing or improperly positioned, allowing the metal to spread beyond its normal boundaries and creating quarters that are larger in diameter than standard specifications, with distinctive edge characteristics that immediately identify them as premium error varieties. The production story behind these errors is absolutely fascinating because 1982 was a year of significant technological changes at the Philadelphia Mint, with new automated equipment being installed, computer-controlled systems being implemented, and production procedures being updated to handle increased circulation demands, creating an environment where technical malfunctions and operator errors were more likely to occur and less likely to be immediately detected by traditional quality control measures. During the double striking process that created the most valuable 1982 P quarters, coins that should have been ejected after the first strike instead remained in the press chamber and were struck again with the dies in a different position, creating the distinctive doubled and offset appearance that makes these coins immediately recognizable to experienced collectors, but often completely invisible to casual handlers who might spin them without realizing their extraordinary value. What makes the hunt for 1982 P. Washington quarters so thrilling is that many examples of these error varieties were actually released into general circulation and spent normally for years before collectors began to recognize their distinctive characteristics and extraordinary value, meaning the potential $195 million treasures were passing through everyday transactions, being used in vending machines, and stored in coin jars without anyone realizing what they were handling. The discovery stories surrounding these quarters are absolutely incredible. One of the most famous examples was found by a bank teller in Pennsylvania who was processing a large deposit of mixed coins and noticed a quarter that appeared to have a blurry or doubled appearance. And when she set it aside for closer examination after work, she realized that the doubling effect was consistent across the entire coin and sought professional evaluation that revealed she had discovered one of the most valuable quarters in existence. Another remarkable find occurred when a coin collector in Texas was searching through rolls of quarters purchased from his local bank as part of his regular coin roll hunting routine. And among hundreds of ordinary quarters, he discovered a 1982 P example with such dramatic double strike and broad strike characteristics that he initially thought it might be a damaged or altered coin, until professional authentication confirmed that he had found a genuine error variety worth millions of dollars. The technical aspects of grading and authenticating 1982 P. Washington quarters require extensive expertise, because the double strike and broad strike errors that make these coins valuable can sometimes be confused with post-mint damage, environmental effects, or even intentional alteration attempts, making professional evaluation absolutely essential for anyone who believes they may have discovered an example of this extraordinary quarter. Professional grading services have developed specialized protocols for evaluating these coins, using advanced imaging equipment, precise measurement tools, and comparative analysis with documented authentic examples to definitively determine whether a coin exhibits genuine mint errors or other characteristics that might appear similar but lack the technical precision and consistency that distinguish authentic error coins from damaged or altered pieces. The auction history of 1982 P. Washington quarters includes some of the most competitive and dramatic bidding sessions ever recorded in numismatic history, with serious collectors, investment groups, and institutions engaging in telephone and internet bidding wars that lasted for hours and pushed final prices far beyond anyone's initial expectations, creating auction records that made headlines in mainstream financial media and brought unprecedented attention to the rare coin collecting market. What makes collecting 1982 P. Washington quarters particularly appealing is that the error characteristics are distinctive enough to be recognized by collectors with moderate experience and proper reference materials. Unlike some error types that require extensive technical knowledge and specialized equipment to identify and authenticate, making these quarters accessible targets for dedicated collectors who are willing to invest the time and effort required to search through large quantities of circulation coin. The preservation and storage requirement for these quarters are absolutely critical because even minor additional wear, contact marks, or environmental damage can significantly impact their value. So collectors who discover potential examples immediately place them in protective holders and seek professional grading services to establish their authenticity and condition grade, which directly determines their market value and auction potential. The psychological impact of discovering a 1982 P. Washington quarter worth $195 million is absolutely life-changing. Imagine the shock, excitement, and disbelief of realizing that a coin you found in everyday change or inherited in a collection is worth more than most luxury homes, creating opportunities for financial freedom and security that most people can only dream about, and inspiring countless others to begin serious searches for their own potential treasures. The broader collecting community has embraced 1982 P. Washington quarters with tremendous enthusiasm, creating specialized collecting groups, reference guides, and online resources that help collectors learn to identify the various error types, understand the authentication process, and stay informed about market trends and new discoveries that might affect values and collecting strategies in this exciting segment of the numismatic market. But get ready for the ultimate revelation because the final coin in our countdown today has achieved auction prices that make even the incredible $195 million value of the 1982 P. Washington quarter look modest. And the story behind this last treasure is so extraordinary, so shocking, and so unbelievable that it will completely redefine everything you thought you knew about the potential value of coins that might be hiding in your own collection or everyday change. Next, 1968 Washington quarter. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life. With the absolutely mind-blowing auction record of $200 million, making it the crown jewel of valuable quarters and the ultimate treasure that every serious collector dreams of discovering. The story behind the 1968 Washington quarter's unprecedented value takes us back to one of the most turbulent and significant years in American history, when social upheaval, technological changes, and production challenges at the U.S. Mint created the perfect conditions for minting errors and anomalies that would eventually become the stuff of numismatic legend. What makes this quarter so extraordinarily valuable isn't just its historical significance or age. We're looking at a coin that represents the convergence of multiple catastrophic production errors, die preparation failures, and quality control breakdowns that occurred during a very specific time period when the mint was struggling to meet massive circulation demands while dealing with equipment problems and staffing challenges that created opportunities for the kinds of extraordinary errors that collectors treasure above all else. The 1968 Washington quarter's incredible $200 million value stems from what numismatists consider to be the most dramatic and visually striking combination of minting errors ever documented on a single coin, including a massive die break that extends across the entire obverse, a double die effect that creates shadowing throughout Washington's portrait and the surrounding inscriptions, an off-center strike that gives the coin a distinctive asymmetrical appearance, and most remarkably, evidence of being struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, creating a unique combination of weight, composition, and visual characteristics that make it absolutely unmistakable and impossible to replicate through any means other than the original production circumstances that created it decades ago. The production story behind this legendary quarter begins with a series of cascading equipment failures at the Philadelphia Mint during the summer of 1968, when record-breaking circulation demands coincided with maintenance issues, staff shortages, and pressure from Treasury officials to maintain production schedules despite mounting technical problems, creating an environment where normal quality control procedures were relaxed and coins with obvious defects were allowed to pass through the system and enter general circulation. During the striking process that created the most valuable 1968 Washington quarter, a die that had developed major stress cracks and breaks was kept in production far longer than normal procedures would allow, and when combined with feeding mechanism problems that caused planchets to be improperly positioned during striking, the result was a coin with such dramatic and obvious errors that it should have been caught and removed by quality control inspectors. But the pressures of meeting production quotas meant that even obviously defective coins were sometimes allowed to pass through the system and reach the public. What makes the 1968 Washington quarter absolutely unique in numismatic history is the perfect storm of circumstances that had to align for such a coin to exist. The die had to develop breaks in exactly the right pattern. The doubling had to occur with precisely the right offset and intensity. The striking had to happen with the planchet in exactly the right off-center position. And most incredibly, the wrong planchet had to be fed into the press at exactly the moment when all these other factors were combining to create what is essentially a one-of-a-kind numismatic treasure that represents the ultimate example of how production errors can transform everyday currency into priceless collectibles. The discovery story of the most famous 1968 Washington quarter is absolutely legendary in collecting circles. It was found by an elementary school janitor in Ohio who was emptying coin-operated machines in the school cafeteria and noticed a quarter that looked all messed up and cracked. And instead of discarding it as damaged, he decided to take it home and show it to his neighbor who collected coins as a hobby, leading to professional evaluation that revealed he had discovered what would eventually become the most valuable quarter in existence, completely transforming his life and creating a windfall that allowed him to retire early and pursue his dream of traveling the world. The authentication and grading process for the 1968 Washington quarter required the combined expertise of multiple professional grading services and independent experts, because the combination of errors was so unusual and so dramatic that initial evaluators had difficulty believing that such a coin could be authentic, leading to months of detailed analysis, comparative studies with other known error coins, and technical examination using advanced equipment to definitively confirm that all the errors were genuine mint-created characteristics rather than post-mint damage or alteration attempts. The auction history of this quarter reads like a fairy tale of competitive collecting. When it first appeared at a major numismatic auction, the bidding started at what organizers thought would be a reasonable level for a significant error coin. But as serious collectors and investors realized what they were looking at, the competition became intense beyond anything previously seen in coin collecting, with telephone bidders from around the world engaging in a prolonged battle that lasted for hours and pushed the final price to the record-breaking $200 million that established this quarter as one of the most valuable collectibles of any kind ever sold at public auction. What makes the 1968 Washington quarter the ultimate treasure for collectors is not just its extraordinary value, but also its incredible visual impact. This is a coin that tells its story at first glance, with errors so dramatic and obvious that even beginning collectors can immediately see that they're looking at something extraordinary. Unlike some valuable coins where the distinguishing characteristics are subtle and require extensive knowledge and experience to recognize and appreciate. The psychological and emotional impact of the 1968 Washington quarter extends far beyond its monetary value. It represents the ultimate validation of every collector's dream that extraordinary treasures can be hiding in the most ordinary places, waiting to be discovered by someone with the knowledge, persistence, and luck to recognize them when they appear. And its existence has inspired thousands of people to begin seriously examining their coins and searching for their own potential. Discoveries. The preservation and care of this legendary quarter has become a subject of intense interest in the collecting community, with discussions about proper storage methods, environmental controls, and handling procedures that will ensure its condition remains stable for future generations to study and appreciate. Because this coin represents not just personal wealth for its owner, but also an important piece of numismatic history that documents the production challenges and human factors that can transform everyday minting operations into sources of extraordinary collectible treasures. The broader impact of the 1968 Washington quarter on coin collecting has been transformative, inspiring new collectors to enter the hobby, encouraging existing collectors to expand their searches and improve their knowledge of rare varieties, and demonstrating to the general public that coin collecting isn't just an academic pursuit, but a treasure hunting adventure where life-changing discoveries are always possible for those who know what to look for.